Karate Kid 3 is considered to be one of the worst conclusions to a trilogy of all time, though it is the worst movie of the trilogy and isn't a perfect conclusion by any means. I consider this movie to still be great in its own right. First, let's talk about the good stuff. Now, Daniel's arc in this movie is essentially him being forced to fight Mike Barnes, who was hired by Kreese's buddy, Terry Silver. Mike Barnes basically just Flash Thompsons this man throughout the whole movie, taking his lunch money and is forcing him to join the All Valley again. He tells Miyagi about this, who says to not fight, and Daniel, who's literally being harassed for the whole film, would argue with Miyagi over this, causing for the first time a fallout between these two. The idea of Daniel and Miyagi falling off is great since it's something very distinct from the norm, plus it's realistic for two people to not always see eye to eye on everything. And this in itself was foreshadowed since Karate Kid 2, since Daniel was even confused as to why Miyagi wasn't going to fight Sato. However, I do see people making the case that maybe this is a character regression from Daniel because he basically grew into the person that Miyagi saw fit by the end of Karate Kid 2, but then that same arrogance he displayed earlier in Karate Kid 2, he displays here. But I feel like it's two different scenarios in itself as well, because Daniel is just getting bullied the whole time, and even when Daniel is trying to do something nice for Miyagi and get the bonsai trees, Mike Barnes is also messing that up, but Miyagi still says no, don't fight. This, along with Terry Silver legit orchestrating everything for Daniel to seem like he was going down a better path when in reality it was a trap, is some pretty good writing that we see more of in Cobra Kai, and this isn't even Daniel's main obstacle in the film, which is fear. For the first time, we actually see Daniel, the fearless Karate Kid, oh my god, that was corny, being scared. And that's all because of Mike Barnes. Mike Barnes is an absolute force to be reckoned with, being easily the biggest menace in the entire Karate Kid trilogy. Now, I do wish Mike Barnes sorta had a reason for all of this besides just money, but I feel like Mike Barnes as a character is somewhat strong enough to stand on his own. So, I'm gonna let it slide, but it would be cool for at least a little background on Mike Barnes, especially because he's just insane. The best part of the film easily though is Terry Silver, who shows a different side of Cobra Kai that we are used to. The Quicksilver method showed Daniel at his worst, but to Terry's eyes nothing is done wrong when using it. In this world, it's either you or your opponent, and even without the flashbacks of him in Cobra Kai, we see how Terry is someone who is loyal to his comrade and is willing to do anything to pay him back. He thought they were going to take over the nation, but we see how that turns out. Another thing I'd like to note about this film as well is kata and how it really isn't the worst thing in the world. The biggest complaint I see about this movie is Daniel's way of defeating Mike Barnes, but I feel like it actually fits specifically for how Mike Barnes is because he's legit just insane, and having a technique that basically allows the user to be in a maximized calm state sort of makes sense as to why Mike Barnes would kind of be ooga-boogooing around this technique. But I do think there should have been a little more foreshadow, kind of like with the drum technique in Karate Kid 2. As for the things I don't really like too much, Kreese is in the film for legit like 10 minutes and he's the one who has the most going on. Like, we legit just get dialogue of what happened to him after Karate Kid 2, and then he just scares Daniel and gets beat up by Miyagi, and that's the last we see of him. And the girl Daniel gets with, which I couldn't even tell you her name by the way, is just Ali 2.0, and you can't even tell me otherwise. At least Kumiko was distinct enough. I feel like the lesson Karate Kid 3 gives you about not succumbing to fear is pretty strong, and we even see this carried out again in Cobra Kai with Sam. Like, bro, Karate Kid 3 is a great movie, it's just not the best out of the three, it's just the worst. But that's because the other two films are so much better. But I don't want to hear the argument of Karate Kid 3 didn't really bring anything new to the table, it was a repeat of Karate Kid 1. This just isn't the case, and I actually do give credit for Karate Kid 3 trying to be different. But to say that this film is just garbage and a 0 out of 10, stop the cap.